Introduction: the invisible force that shapes your life. Most people believe success is about talent. Some believe it's about luck. Others think it's about intelligence, connections, or timing. But the truth is simpler and far more uncomfortable. Your life today is a result of what you consistently do and what you consistently avoid. Not your intentions, not your dreams, not what you want to do, but your daily behavior. In this video, you're going to discover the real engine behind lasting success. Not motivation, not hype, not willpower bursts. You'll learn how discipline actually works inside your brain, why you resist change even when you want it, how habits silently shape your identity, why discomfort is the doorway to growth, and how to build a system that makes progress inevitable. If you stay until the end, you'll walk away with a clear framework for taking control of your actions, your focus, and your future. And if you're serious about becoming the strongest version of yourself, subscribe now, because this channel is dedicated to helping you build real power from the inside out. Let's begin. Part 1. Discipline is a skill, not a personality trait. One of the most damaging myths in personal growth is a belief that discipline is something you're either born with or not. That some people are naturally disciplined, while everyone else is destined to struggle. That idea is comforting, but it's false. Discipline is not a personality trait. It is a skill, and like any skill, it can be learned, trained, and strengthened. Your brain is constantly adapting to what you practice. When you repeatedly choose long-term rewards over short-term pleasure, the circuits responsible for self-control grow stronger. When you repeatedly give into impulses and distractions, different circuits grow stronger. Either way, you are always training something. Every choice is a vote for the person you are becoming. This means two important things. First, if you struggle with discipline today, you are not broken. You are not lazy by nature. You are simply running patterns that were built over time. Second, you can change those patterns. Not instantly, but gradually through consistent practice. There is one reality you must understand. Self-control is not unlimited. Just like muscles get tired, willpower gets tired too. The more decisions you make and the more temptations you resist, the more mentally exhausted you become. That's why discipline cannot rely on motivation alone. This is where environment becomes powerful. If junk food is on your desk, you'll fight temptation all day. If your phone is beside you while working, you'll fight distraction all day. If negative people surround you, you'll fight discouragement all day. Smart discipline is not about heroic resistance. It's about intelligent design. You shape your environment so the right choice becomes the easy choice. Discipline is not about waiting to feel motivated. It's about doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it. Because consistency builds momentum. Momentum builds identity. And identity builds destiny. Part 2. Why discipline changes everything. When you begin to build real discipline, something interesting happens. You don't just get better at one area of your life. You start getting better at everything. Because discipline is not a single habit. It's a foundation. And once that foundation is strong, everything you build on top of it becomes stronger too. Your confidence begins to rise. Not because you suddenly feel amazing about yourself, but because you start keeping promises to yourself. You say you will wake up early, and you do. You say you will train, and you show up. You say you will work on your goals, and you take action. Over time, these small acts of integrity create something powerful. You begin to trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, confidence becomes natural. Your relationships improve as well. People can sense reliability. They notice who follows through and who doesn't. A disciplined person becomes someone others can depend on. Someone whose word means something. That kind of consistency builds respect. And respect builds strong relationships. Your finances start to change too. Discipline teaches you to delay pleasure. You stop chasing every impulse purchase. You stop trading your future for short-term comfort. You learn to think long-term. And that single shift compounds into massive financial difference over time. Emotionally, you become steadier. You're no longer controlled by every urge, every mood, every wave of emotion. You feel things, but you don't obey everything you feel. You gain space between impulse and action, and in that space, you gain control. Self-disciplined people are not perfect. They still struggle. They still fail, but they are reliable. They don't crumble when criticized. They don't collapse when pressure shows up. They don't need constant validation from the outside world because their validation comes from inside. Low discipline creates low self-respect. High discipline creates quiet confidence, not loud confidence, not arrogant confidence, but calm, grounded confidence, the kind that whispers, I can handle hard things. Part 3. Why you resist change, even when you want it. Human beings are not naturally wired to chase growth. We are wired to seek safety. And safety often feels like staying exactly where we are, even when where we are is painful. This is why people so often choose familiar pain over unfamiliar growth. Even when your current situation is bad, even when you feel unhappy, stuck, or unfulfilled, at least it is predictable. And the brain loves predictability. This is why people remain in bad jobs that drain their energy, why they stay in unhealthy relationships that slowly break them down, why they keep repeating destructive habits they know are hurting them, not because they enjoy these situations, not because they don't want better, but because change feels risky, change feels uncertain, and uncertainty triggers fear. Another powerful psychological trap is what's known as sunk cost thinking. You tell yourself, I've already invested so much time. I've already put in years. If I quit now, all of that was for nothing. But here's the truth. Past investment does not justify future suffering. Just because something costs you time, energy, or emotion does not mean you must keep paying that price forever. You do not owe loyalty to choices that are destroying your health, your peace, or your future. Growth sometimes requires walking away. Growth sometimes requires starting over. And starting over is not failure. It is courage. Fear of regret keeps many people frozen. They imagine how painful it would be to fail. But in reality, the greatest regret is rarely failure. The greatest regret is never trying. It's looking back years later and wondering what could have happened if you had taken the risk. Progress always requires discomfort. There is no path to a better life that avoids it. The question is not whether you will feel discomfort. The question is which discomfort you will choose. The discomfort of staying stuck or the discomfort of growing. Part 4. The danger of thinking you're better than you are. One of the most subtle obstacles to growth is overestimating your own abilities, not because you're trying to lie to yourself, but because the mind naturally wants to protect your self-image. It feels good to believe you're disciplined. It feels good to believe you're productive. It feels good to believe you're already doing enough. But comfort and truth are not always the same thing. Many people think they're disciplined until they start tracking their behavior, until they see how often they hit snooze, how often they delay important tasks, how often they choose comfort over progress. Many people think they're productive until they measure their actual output, until they realize how many hours disappear into distractions, scrolling, and busy work that produces nothing meaningful. This realization can be uncomfortable, but it is also powerful because real growth does not begin with confidence. It begins with honesty. True growth begins with humility. Strong people are not those who claim to have everything figured out. Strong people are the ones who can say, I still have a lot to learn. They understand that improvement is a lifelong process. The deeper you go, the more you realize how much there is to improve. And instead of feeling overwhelmed by that fact, you begin to feel liberated by it because it means you're not finished. You're not capped. You're not stuck at some permanent level. There's always another layer you can reach, another skill you can sharpen, another version of yourself you can grow into. Feedback in this mindset stops feeling like an attack. It becomes information. It becomes data that helps you adjust your course. The person who welcomes feedback grows faster than the person who protects their ego, not because they enjoy criticism, but because they value progress more than comfort. Ego wants to look good. Discipline wants to get better. And the people who choose to get better eventually become unstoppable. Part 5. Habits create identity. Your habits are not small things. They may look insignificant in the moment, but over time they shape everything about you. What you repeatedly do becomes who you are. Your habits become your character. Your character becomes your reputation. And your reputation quietly becomes your life. Most people think success comes from big, dramatic actions. In reality, success is built through automatic behaviors. Habits run in the background of your life. They operate even when you're not thinking about them. That's why the real goal is not to become heroic, not to rely on bursts of motivation, not to push yourself through constant exhaustion. The real goal is to make success automatic. When the right actions become habits, discipline stops feeling like a battle. You no longer ask yourself if you're going to do the work. You simply do it. The decision has already been made. A powerful life starts with a powerful day, and a powerful day starts with a powerful morning. Waking up when you said you would build self-trust. Moving your body wakes up your mind. Drinking water signals that you respect your health. Reading or learning feeds your future. Spending a few quiet minutes in reflection centers your attention. These small actions may seem simple, but together they create momentum. Your evening matters just as much as your morning. How you end the day determines how you start the next one. Turning off screens, slowing down, and creating a calm transition into sleep protects your energy. Sleep is not laziness. Sleep is not weakness. Sleep is a performance enhancer. A rested mind makes better decisions. A rested body resists temptation more easily. Gratitude also plays a powerful role in discipline. When you regularly appreciate what you already have, you become less desperate for quick hits of pleasure. You stop chasing cheap dopamine and start valuing long-term progress. Set daily goals, not massive fantasies that overwhelm you. Small, clear targets you can actually complete. Win the day. When you win enough days, they turn into weeks. Weeks turn into years. And years quietly turn into a life you're proud of. Part 6. Pushing past perceived limits. When your mind tells you, "I'm done," it is rarely telling you the truth. Most of the time, it is simply signaling discomfort, not actual danger. The body still has more to give. The mind just wants to protect you from feeling uncomfortable. Understanding this single idea can completely change how you approach effort. Most people quit the moment discomfort appears. They interpret struggle as a sign to stop. Elite performers interpret struggle as a signal that growth is happening. They expect discomfort. They train for it. They no longer see it as something to fear, but as something to move through. The mind has a powerful tendency to exaggerate danger. It convinces you that effort is unsafe, that failure will be catastrophic, that pushing further will break you. But in most cases, none of that is true. What you're really facing is resistance. And resistance fades when you keep moving. Belief shapes performance more than most people realize. If you constantly tell yourself that you are weak, that you lack discipline, that you can't handle hard things, your behavior will match that story. But if you begin to see yourself as someone who can endure, someone who can improve, someone who can push a little further than before, your actions start to change. Confidence does not come first. Action comes first. Confidence is built through evidence, and evidence is built through small wins. You don't need to overhaul your entire life in one day. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a starting point. Start before you feel ready. Read one page. Do one push-up. Write one paragraph. Take one small step. That tiny action breaks inertia. It creates movement, and movement creates momentum. Momentum doesn't start with massive effort. Momentum starts tiny. Part 7. What destroys discipline? One of the biggest enemies of discipline rarely looks dangerous on the surface. It doesn't show up screaming failure. It shows up pretending to be productive. Procrastination often disguises itself as preparation. You tell yourself, I'm planning, I'm researching, I just need a little more information. I'll start tomorrow. But in many cases, this is not preparation at all. It is avoidance. And underneath avoidance, there's usually fear. Fear of failing, fear of looking foolish, fear of not being good enough, fear of discomfort. So instead of moving forward, you stay busy. You scroll, you organize, you tweak, you wait, all while telling yourself that you're getting ready. But readiness is not what creates progress. Action does. Another major trap is perfectionism. It sounds noble. It sounds like high standards. But most of the time, perfectionism is just fear in a more respectable outfit. Perfect does not exist. There will never be a moment where everything lines up flawlessly. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be flaws. Progress, on the other hand, is real. Progress is messy. Progress is imperfect. Progress is available right now. Action creates clarity, not the other way around. You don't move because you feel confident. You feel confident because you moved. You don't wait until everything makes sense. You start, and meaning reveals itself along the way. A useful rule is this. Take action when you're about 70% sure. That remaining 30% will be figured out through experience. Waiting for 100% certainty is a quiet way of choosing never. Finally, start watching your own patterns. Notice how you delay. Notice how you distract yourself. Notice how you escape into comfort, not to judge yourself, not to shame yourself, but to understand yourself, because awareness gives you power, and power gives you the ability to choose differently. Part 8. Becoming comfortable with discomfort. Discipline is uncomfortable. There is no way around it. And that discomfort is not a flaw in the process. It is the process. Growth does not happen in comfort. Comfort is where things stay the same. Growth lives on the other side of what you would rather avoid. Most people spend their lives trying to escape discomfort. They chase ease. They chase convenience. They chase pleasure. And in doing so, they slowly weaken their ability to handle challenge. But every time you willingly do something hard, something powerful happens. Your tolerance increases. Your resilience expands. You become stronger, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Discomfort is like a muscle. The more you expose yourself to it, the more familiar it becomes. What once felt impossible starts to feel manageable. What once felt overwhelming starts to feel normal. This is how discipline is built, not through massive heroic acts, but through repeated exposure to small difficulties. Urges are a perfect example. An urge feels intense. It feels urgent. It feels like something you must obey immediately. But an urge is not a command. It is a temporary sensation. It rises like a wave. It grows. It peaks. And if you do nothing, it falls. You don't have to obey your urges. And you don't have to fight them aggressively either. Fighting often gives them more power. Instead, observe them. Notice what you're feeling. Breathe slowly. Stay present. Let the sensation exist without turning it into action. When you do this, you realize something important. The urge passes. You remain. And each time you ride an urge instead of reacting to it, you strengthen your sense of control. You prove to yourself that you are not your impulses. You are the one who chooses. That is real power. Part 9. Systems beat goals. Goals are important. They give you direction. They give you something to aim at. But goals alone do not create change. Goals tell you where you want to go. Systems tell you how you're going to get there. And without a system, even the best goal remains just a wish. When you focus only on goals, your happiness becomes fragile. You feel good only when you make progress. You feel excited only when you're close to the finish line. And most of the time, you feel behind. You feel like you're failing. You feel like you're not doing enough. That emotional roller coaster is exhausting. Systems change that. A system is your daily routine, your habits, your structure. It's what you do regardless of how you feel. When you follow your system, you win, even if the final goal is still far away. Even if results are not visible yet, ask yourself a simple question. Did you follow your routine today? Did you train? Did you study? Did you work on your craft? If the answer is yes, you succeeded today. Systems shift your focus from outcomes to actions, from fantasy to process, from distant dreams to present behavior. Instead of asking, how do I lose weight? Ask, what kind of person trains consistently? Instead of asking, how do I become successful? Ask, what kind of person shows up and does the work every day? Because identity creates behavior, and behavior reinforces identity. When your habits become part of who you are, discipline stops feeling forced. You no longer rely on motivation. You act because it's who you are, and when you build the right system, results become inevitable. Part 10. Living in the present while building the future. Many people believe they must choose between living in the present and building for the future. But this is a false choice. You can plan for the future without living in constant anxiety. You can work hard without hating your life. You can be ambitious and peaceful at the same time. The key is presence. Presence improves performance. When your attention is fully in the moment, your mind becomes quieter. You stop replaying the past. You stop constantly worrying about the future. Your energy stops leaking in every direction. And when your energy is focused, your actions become more effective. This is where meditation becomes powerful, not as something mystical, not as something complicated, but as a practical training tool. Meditation does not mean emptying your mind. It means learning to observe your mind without being controlled by it. You notice thoughts, you notice emotions, and instead of automatically reacting, you watch them pass. This skill changes everything, because most mistakes happen in moments of automatic reaction. You feel stressed, so you escape. You feel bored, so you distract yourself. You feel frustrated, so you quit. Meditation creates a small gap between feeling and action, and inside that gap, you gain choice. You don't need long sessions. You don't need perfect conditions. Start small. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. Sit quietly. Focus on your breathing. When your mind wanders, gently bring it back. That's the workout. Consistency beats duration. A few minutes every day is more powerful than one long session once a month. Over time, meditation strengthens your ability to pause before reacting, and that pause is power. Part 11. Stop trying. Start doing. The word try sounds harmless. It sounds responsible. It sounds positive. But hidden inside that word is an escape route. When you say, I'll try, what you're really saying is, I might do this and I might not. You leave yourself a door open, a door back to comfort, a door back to excuses. High performers don't live in the language of try. They live in the language of decision. There is a massive difference between saying, I'll try to wake up early, and saying, I wake up at 6. There's a massive difference between saying, I'll try to work out, and saying, I train today. One is optional. The other is identity. Replace try with do, not in a dramatic, unrealistic way, not with perfection, not with obsession, but with commitment. Commitment means you decide in advance. You remove negotiation. You stop debating with yourself every day about whether you feel like doing the work. You already chose. This doesn't mean setting impossible standards. It means setting realistic goals. Small enough to be achievable. Clear enough to be measurable. Then you execute. You show up. You take action. You repeat. Confidence does not come from hype. It does not come from positive quotes. It does not come from wishing. Confidence grows from keeping promises to yourself. Every time you do what you said you would do, you send yourself a message. I can be trusted. And when you trust yourself, everything changes. Part 12. Winner or loser is a daily choice. There is no neutral direction in life. You are never standing still. Even when it feels like nothing is happening, something is happening. You are either practicing habits that move you closer to the person you want to become, or habits that move you further away. You're either training yourself to win or training yourself to lose. Every day is a vote, not a vote based on your intentions, not a vote based on what you hope will happen, a vote based on what you actually do. Winners are not people who never struggle. Winners are people who decide to keep moving forward despite struggle. They know what they want, not in a vague way, not in a blurry way, but clearly. They take time to define their goals. They know where they are going. They also understand that shortcuts sabotage success. They don't cut corners. They don't look for magic solutions. They respect the process. They accept that progress is built through small steps taken consistently. Small steps count. Reading one page counts. Training for 10 minutes counts. Writing one paragraph counts. Repetition builds mastery. Doing something once does nothing. Doing it repeatedly changes who you are. Over time, those repeated actions shape your identity. And identity shapes destiny. This is why celebrating small wins matters. Not in an arrogant way, not in a complacent way, but in a reinforcing way. Each small win sends a message to your brain. This is who I am now. And the more you see yourself as someone who shows up, the easier it becomes to keep showing up. Part 13. Fall in love with the process. Most people fall in love with the idea of success. They imagine the results, the transformation, the applause, the freedom, the lifestyle. But very few people fall in love with what actually creates those results. Effort. They love the destination. They hate the road. And this is where most people lose. Because if you only love outcomes, you will quit when things get hard. You will quit when progress feels slow. You will quit when motivation disappears. But if you learn to love the process, you become unstoppable. You stop depending on how you feel. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You show up because showing up is who you are. Loving the process does not mean pretending that work is always fun. It means training your mind to associate effort with something positive instead of something painful. You can start small. Pair hard tasks with something pleasant. Play music you enjoy while working. Make yourself a good cup of coffee before you begin. Create an environment that feels calm, clean, and focused. Over time, repetition creates positive associations. Your brain starts linking effort with reward. Work stops feeling like punishment. It starts feeling normal, even satisfying. This is how identity is built. You don't become consistent because you are special. You don't become disciplined because you were chosen. You become consistent because you keep showing up. And after enough repetition, you no longer ask yourself if you are the type of person who works hard. You already know, because it's who you are. Part 14. Using negative emotions as fuel. Most people are taught to fear negative emotions. They're told that anger is bad, that envy is shameful, that anxiety is weakness, that sadness is something to escape from as quickly as possible. So they suppress these emotions. They distract themselves. They numb themselves. But negative emotions are not enemies. They are signals. Each emotion carries information. Each one is trying to tell you something about your life, your boundaries, or your unmet needs. Anger can become drive. Anger often appears when something feels unfair, when something feels wrong, when you know deep down that you're capable of more. Instead of exploding or shutting down, you can channel that energy into action. You can use it to train harder, to work longer, to prove to yourself what you're capable of. Envy can reveal desire. When you feel envy toward someone, it usually means they have something you secretly want, a skill, a lifestyle, a level of discipline. Instead of tearing them down, use that emotion as a mirror. Ask yourself, what is this showing me about what I want to build? Anxiety can push preparation. Anxiety often arises when you sense that you are unprepared for something that matters. Instead of running from that feeling, use it as a signal to get ready, to study, to practice. to improve your skills. Sadness can clarify priorities. It slows you down. It forces reflection. It asks you to look honestly at what's missing, what hurts, and what truly matters. Emotions are not commands. You don't have to obey everything you feel, but you also don't have to drown in your emotions. Use them, let them guide you, then turn them into fuel. Part 15. Accepting that most work won't pay off. One of the hardest truths about building anything meaningful is this: not everything you do will succeed. In fact, most of what you try will not work the way you hoped. And that is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. That is normal. A small percentage of your efforts will create the majority of your results. A few decisions, a few projects, a few habits, a few relationships. These will make the biggest difference. The problem is, you cannot predict in advance which ones those will be. That's why your job is not to perfectly choose every move. Your job is to keep showing up, to keep experimenting, to keep learning, to keep taking shots. Failure is not wasted time if you extract lessons from it. Every attempt teaches you something. What works, what doesn't, what needs adjustment, what fits you, what doesn't. Progress rarely looks like a straight line. It looks like trial and error. It looks like starting things that don't pan out. It looks like changing direction. It looks like pivoting when new information appears. Pivoting is not quitting. Pivoting is strategic. It means you're paying attention. It means you're adapting. It means you're committed to the outcome, not attached to a specific path. Most people fail not because they aren't capable, but because they stop too soon. They take early setbacks as proof that they should quit. But success usually goes to the person who simply stays in the game longer. Keep showing up. Keep refining. Keep moving. That's how results eventually find you. Part 16. Avoiding burnout. Discipline is powerful, but discipline without recovery becomes self-destruction. Pushing nonstop, ignoring your limits, and treating exhaustion as a badge of honor does not make you strong. It makes you fragile. Sustainable discipline is not about crushing yourself every day. It's about building a rhythm you can maintain for years. Sleep matters, more than most people admit. A tired mind makes poor decisions. A tired body craves quick comfort. Lack of sleep weakens willpower and amplifies negative emotions. Protecting your sleep is not laziness. It is strategy. Hydration matters. Nutrition matters. What you put into your body affects how you think, how you feel, and how much energy you have to show up. You cannot expect high performance from a neglected system. Breaks matter. Your brain is not designed for endless output. Stepping away is not falling behind. It is resetting. Short pauses prevent long collapses. Boundaries matter. You cannot say yes to everything. You cannot carry every responsibility. Discipline also means knowing when to say no, knowing when to protect your time and energy. Rest is strategic. It is part of the plan, not a deviation from it. And if you do burn out, don't turn it into self-hatred. Pause, recover, adjust your approach, then continue. The goal is not to be intense for a month. The goal is to be consistent for years. Because long-term consistency always beats short-term intensity. Conclusion: the quiet path to greatness. You don't need to be extraordinary. You need to be consistent. You don't need perfect discipline. You need practiced discipline. Your future is built in ordinary moments. When you wake up tired, when you don't feel like training, when no one is watching, those moments shape your life. Start small. Stay consistent. Become dangerous in silence. And if this video helped you see discipline differently, subscribe for more content that helps you build real strength, real focus, and real control over your life. Your best self is waiting. Go meet them.